I'm Andy,
I'm Drew.
and this is Spork.
Spork. So this week on Spork, in our 2026 first episode, we are revisiting the 2020 or 2010 NCAA season, and specifically the National Championship game that year that had the Oregon Ducks going up against the Auburn Tigers. And we are going to look at what if Oregon had won that pretty close game, actually, as it came down the stretch, and looking back at it and doing some of the highlights. But, I guess to take a step back and give some context around the two teams coming in there. They had, Auburn, it was the year of Cam Newton.
Yeah, Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, undefeated.
No
real NFL talent on that team besides him and one defensive player, Nick Fairley.
Yes.
And on the other side, you have the Oregon Ducks that are just almost the antithesis of the SEC football right at this time, where it's just speed everywhere.
Yes.
Every position. And one thing I didn't realize going into this is that Darren Thomas, who Oregon's quarterback, was actually the third string quarterback going into, or projected to be before the season started.
Really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
Because they had Jeremiah Masoli, and then the other guy had a bunch of injuries throughout his career and kind of came and went and was actually the starter day one, but I think he tore his ACL, and it was like a second or third knee surgery in college, and I think it was his junior year. But so it's Chip Kelly's second season, and I want to say it was, this is awful start here.
We're
Gus Malzahn, right? And or Gene Chizik, right? Here's the coach.
Yeah.
Chizik.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a mediocre season before, and then after the season, I think he only lasts 3 more and gets fired. So he kind of grabbed this shooting star of Cam Newton, rode him to one great season, and then after that, the wheels came off again.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we see from Auburn a lot, right? They have like this one dominant season and then go kind of cold. I mean, relatively speaking, for 3 to 4 seasons and then repeat. So Gene Chizik, he had his one hit this year.
Yeah, and they had, I think they had 7 wins. I think I read right, under 7 points or less throughout their season. Auburn did. I mean, they were skating by the entire year, riding their undefeated record. I mean, just running through these close games real quick. They beat Mississippi State by 3, Clemson by 3 in overtime, South Carolina by 8, Kentucky by 3, LSU by 6, and then Alabama by 1, and then they beat Oregon by 3 to win the national championship. So, the ball bounces a different way. They miss a field goal. I mean, there's, a lot of things went right for Auburn that year.
Yeah, I mean, you said it before, it was a team without a ton of NFL talent, right? And so it makes sense that there's a lot of close games, but typically when you have the best player on the field, you can overcome, some of those, you're not going to see a lot of blowouts. We'll say that. But you can overcome the lack of blowouts when you have the best player.
So I don't know where you want to start with this. Maybe just talking about the game in general and
Sure.
kind of walking through that. So they had the pretty lackluster first quarter, 0-0. And then an explosion of scoring in the second quarter had Auburn taking a 16-11 lead into half. And then a field goal for Auburn in the third quarter. And then Oregon actually ties the game up with 3 minutes, I think, or Yes, about 3 minutes, I think. And then Auburn comes down, and there's actually a pretty controversial play that kind of led to them getting into field goal range to run the clock out and kick a field goal when his time expired, where future Louisville running back Michael Dyer was tackled perceivably, but actually rolled over a guy, and they never blew the play dead, and he just kept running.
Yeah.
And since he never touched the ground, he was never ruled down. So he ended up with
It was a 37-yard run. Now, I don't know how far the run was prior to being, quote, tackled, but it definitely was a huge momentum boost and led up to that field goal.
Yeah, it was a 6-yard run that became a 37-yard run.
I mean, that's the difference in playing more time versus
yeah. So, and I think so player wise, kind of looking at the legacies from that season, I don't think anybody on Oregon really went to the next level and did a whole lot, right? LaMichael James was the big stud that year for them, but I think he was undersized, 5'8". Never, I don't think, it looks like he had 193 rushing yards in the NFL. Never had a touchdown. Had over 1,000 return yards, but I don't know that this really changes much for him. I think for Chip Kelly, that's probably where having a title to his name probably changes his legacy a lot more than, he's almost become a journeyman, cleaner version of Bobby Petrino, right? Just kind of this offensive guru that bops around.
He was definitely the flashy hire, especially, when you look at how those Oregon teams played. Like everybody wanted that speed. It was the, hurry up and snap the ball. Like how many plays can we run? It was.
Yeah. Well, and it was 1 year later where he had an offer to go to, what NFL team did he walk out? Tampa Bay in 2011. Backed out of that, and then they had some sanctions coming for, what was that for? Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I mean, for some reason,
they were using external scouting sources that they weren't supposed to. So, but yeah, and then he left to go to the Eagles as a head coach, then the 49ers, then left there to go to UCLA, and after 6 years, went to go be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Spent a year there, Raiders as offensive coordinator, was fired mid-season. And then he signed with Northwestern this past December, November to be their offensive coordinator next year.
Man, that's a lot of moving.
Yeah. Yeah. He must live in have an RV or something. I don't know.
Yeah, since we're talking about him, I mean, if they win this game, he stayed around Oregon, I think, 2 more years after the game itself. And I think a lot of that was probably trying to chase what he thought was so close.
Yeah.
As far as his timeline, though, that Tampa Bay job, I think if he wins the national championship, he takes it.
Yeah.
And I don't think job's done. I did it, and I'm moving. I'm taking the paycheck, right? Like I'm gonna go.
Yeah. Based on everything else, it doesn't seem like he was planning on Oregon being a home long term. So
no, and leading up to him, I mean, there were the 2 coaches prior to him. I think they were there collectively 30 plus seasons.
Yeah.
And then Chip Kelly came in and he only coached there for 4, which I don't know is super abnormal now, but it was definitely abnormal for Oregon. But I think that was just kind of who he was.
Yeah. And then, I guess switching over to Auburn on that side of the ball, Cam Newton, maybe I don't think he takes a hit in the draft. I think all that probably plays out the same.
I agree.
I think he's clearly such was such an just athlete, man among boys. Even once he got to the NFL, he just had a size advantage that I don't think had ever really been seen that way before. Really.
No. And now we see it with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Like similar size and build. But, up until that, I mean, I think I was reading he is like 6'5", 250, maybe even taller, a little bit heavier, if depending on who's measuring him. Right. So, I mean, that's a big guy.
Yeah. I mean,
for
he
a
was
quarterback in general.
Like a mix between like Ben Roethlisberger and Ray Lewis or something. Where it's like you got, the speed, athleticism, and, the quarterback behind that.
Yeah.
So I think most of how everything plays out for him similarly, but Gene Chizik is a interesting. I was looking at his career, so he had a career of just defensive coordinator type positions. Was there at eventually was up at Central Florida, got a job at Auburn in 2002. Then left to be Texas's co-defensive coordinator, 05 and 06. Then went to Iowa State to be their head coach. Then left after 2 years to go to Auburn. And that was it for head coaching. They went to North Carolina and was a defensive coordinator for I assume the last 8 years of his career. I'll say only 60. He, I think he did not stay when Belichick was hired, and actually might not have been there for Mac Brown's last season either.
Yeah, and if you look at that career, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily say he's a household name, but he's a name that casual sports fans probably have heard. You win a championship, it makes sense, but it's outside of that season, he's not. The rest of his career is there, right? And it just kind of shows you like the power of winning that one championship and what that can bring to your notoriety.
Yeah. No, and even his offensive coordinator was Gus Malzahn, who ended up going back to Auburn to take over as head coach. Now he's offensive coordinator at Florida State. So, you have these head coaches in this game that, 16 years later, they're now coordinators.
Right.
These guys that were probably seen at the time as kind of the up and coming almost just got squashed by the Saban dynasty, really, which is kind of leading into our next part here, I think. So, I guess jumping into that now. So, I think if Oregon wins this, it breaks up the SEC streak at this time, right?
Yes.
Up until now, you have the SEC starting with Florida in 06. It went until Alabama in 2012. They won 1, 2, 3, what was that, 7 in a row? And then, it was kind of the peak SEC era. And even the following season is when there's a Stanford, Alabama, and the Ohio State that all have one loss in the 2012 season. And, it's the SEC reputation that gets Alabama up and over. So, if that happens, what does that change that season? Where the SEC doesn't have the bulletproof reputation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point because we build a lot of that. I think voters and committees and whatnot take what you did in the past and kind of build you up a little bit. Moving forward, it's like, okay, you won a championship. We're going to give you a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt when stacking up against other teams. So does it help propel them in these rankings and whatnot forward over some of those other borderline championship teams?
Yeah. But I guess I misspoke a little bit. So LSU was was undefeated that year in 2011 for the 2012 national championship. And so it came down to Alabama, Oklahoma State, and Stanford. And Alabama got the nod over the other two schools. And it set up the LSU Alabama rematch. And that's what a lot of people point to as kind of the biggest calling for the college football playoff in whatever iteration is, it's just the SEC rematch that nobody outside of a handful of states probably really wanted to see.
Right. Yeah. And kind of looking at, we're talking a lot about the SEC and their dominance and how it changes, but the Pac-12 or even just like the West in total, even to this day, I don't believe they've won a national championship since 2004 when USC won.
Right.
So you're talking, and so, we're going on 21, 22 years. And obviously the Pac-12 has been dismantled.
I was going to say, I don't see Oregon State or Washington State winning anytime soon.
No, but even, just teams, we would consider Western teams, air quotes, teams that were in the Pac-12 or Mountain West or one of those conferences, they're not winning championships. It's been SEC, Big Ten, some ACC sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
But USC
outside of USC in, was it 2004?
Yeah.
The furthest west teams since 2000 are USC and then Oklahoma and Texas in some order.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you kind of look at that, right? And if Oregon wins this game, okay, does that, maybe it changes, how the playoff is, the whole playoff structure in general, but does it save a conference from being dismantled? I don't know. But there's probably a little bit there, with the TV deals and whatnot.
And you got to think right now is, I don't know when the SEC network officially launched, but I want to say it's about this time when ESPN's pumping money into the SEC. And let's see, the SEC network started in 2014. So they announced the deal in 2013. So, that's right at the tail end of their 7-year run. So maybe that, I don't know, it's probably still attractive. There's so many eyeballs down there watching college sports.
There are.
But, I think the SEC network, specifically with ESPN going all in on SEC football, is really what I think started the dominoes for all the conference changing and realignment. So, let's see, anything else on this topic?
Yeah, off the top of my head, we covered most of probably all of what I was going to get into. Yeah, there's some things that, with things have been a little bit different with Marcus Mariota, in that he already won the Heisman, but does the some of those borderline games while he was playing, do they flip their way? If there's a little bit of that championship confidence, I guess, for lack of better words.
Yeah, well,
that comes through.
Yeah, and I also wonder, I feel like a lot of teams have tried to, I won't say replicate, I'll just say replicate, what Alabama was doing, right? And that's really what the SEC was. Alabama did really well with Saban. Everybody started hiring Saban coordinators, trying to make their own Alabama at their school. Even Clemson plays, like Alabama ball, right?
Right.
And, if Oregon gets over the hump with their style of play, maybe you start seeing that kind of seeping throughout college football a little bit more, trying to play more on the edges and less, I won't say bully ball, right? But, kind of more. And, the game has changed so much in the past 16 years of how everybody plays, where, I'd say everybody's kind of gone to it resembles Oregon more than it does Auburn at this point.
Right. That makes sense.
So, but yeah.
Well, I think that's all I had for this topic.
All right. Well, yeah. Nice, easy one to get in. It would have been much more timely had Oregon been able to, eke out a victory the other week and, not have Indiana just steamroll them, right?
I mean, Indiana's on a tear right now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. So can't blame Oregon too much for that one.
Yeah. And, I think just on that game, maybe if Miami wins somehow on some controversial play, it'll be, karmic retribution. I don't know how that one works for the championship from Ohio State beating them, 24 years ago now. So
right. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So we'll see what the U can pull it off, but I doubt it.
We all do.
All right. Well, we'll call it there.
Happy New Year.
And that's a wrap for today. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and be sure to tune in next time.